So welcome to webinar 10, the final webinar in the IMPACTUS Online Sales Academy program for August and September 2025. This webinar is slightly longer than the usual hour in the fact that it's 90 minutes as a live webinar, probably records out at a little shorter than that without the interaction of a live event. But this is the power of LinkedIn, and I've called it a masterclass because it's slightly different in terms of format. I'm going to share with you all the practicalities and skills to make LinkedIn work for you as a sales generator opportunity on that basis. So before we start, I always go with the kind of context setting around why this workshop or webinar or masterclass, whatever you want to call it, is of relevance and why it fits in with the rest of the program as we have developed it. So the first thing to think about is LinkedIn being both an opportunity for developing sales and relationships and opportunities, but it's also frustrating in equal measure. A lot of people, try it, don't like it, doesn't seem to work for them, and they sort of lose heart, etc. The reality is it's a great place to research potential connections, and that's the starting point for me, really. It's the connectivity of finding people who might be of interest to you and you might be of interest to them. It's a great place to research opportunities. So, for example, one of my clients is big in the events sector, and they publish on LinkedIn. A lot of big corporates publish their event schedule, and that allows my client to research kind of what kind of events that they run, what kind of people are attending them internally or externally, size and scale, location, geography, etc., etc. So it's a great research tool. It's also a great place to create some noise and awareness of your brand, of you as a person, of your business, and we'll come back to the business versus person conundrum shortly. But essentially, you've got to be on there and you've got to be creating kind of awareness of you as part of that sort of being visible, shall we say. The reality is, a lot of people don't do enough and then wonder why it doesn't work for them. And we'll talk later about the algorithm and regularity of posting and the types of posts that you might sort of help to raise that awareness. It's also a great place to seek and secure some validation. Some people use it like social media for the likes and the sort of validation points in terms of content, comments and that kind of thing. For me, it's not about that, but for some people, it seems to be that works. I would much rather have 10 or 12 high quality interactions than 150 or 200 or 3,000 kind of just thumb up likes, etc., with no engagement. It's also a potentially great source of business if used correctly, which we're going to cover. However, it can be frustrating and annoying because nobody seems to be able to work out what the algorithm's doing and why some posts work and some don't. And, it's full of people now posting stuff that's pretty Facebookish and, jokes and all that kind of thing. It started off as a person-to-person, business-to-business platform, and now it seems to be not much different in some cases from the likes of Facebook and Instagram, for example. You can easily spend your time and energy and activity in terms of it can burn that quite regularly and quite easily in terms of going down a rabbit hole. You start off, with the intention of either commenting on a post or posting something, and suddenly it's like, oh, what's over there? Oh, who said that? And an hour's gone and you've wasted your time. But there appears to be little rhyme or reason to it. Certainly recently, LinkedIn doesn't seem to have a particularly consistent approach to how it supports posts and people and all that kind of thing. And it is getting a bit more like Facebook every day, which some people see as a negative, and to a certain extent I do on that basis. So is it potentially less effective than it once was? The argument would be it's bigger than it once was, so therefore it's probably more effective. The downside of that is it's not more effective simply because it's bigger. It might be less effective because it's less kind of consistent in terms of business rather than personal. So that's the context of why we're doing this, and we'll hopefully get past those frustrations that some people might have and share with you why it should be something in your armory as a business development, sales, marketing professional in terms of growing your opportunities and scale. So The thing with LinkedIn, it starts with you as an individual, okay? So yes, there's a company page. Yes, there's individuals within that company, but LinkedIn predominantly gets more generation of responses through individuals than it does through companies. I'll give you an example. As me as an individual, as Nick Bramley, I've just gone through 10,000 connections and 10,500 followers, been on here since 2007. And in reality, my engagement numbers are pretty good, pretty secure in terms of posting things and being confident that there'll be, a certain level of engagement. But on my company page of Impactus Group, I've probably got 250, 300 followers and connections, if that, because people don't connect with the company, they connect with the person. And that's where it starts with you. Okay. So I'm not going to go through a lot of stuff around setting your LinkedIn up properly. I will talk about a few things because I think it's important. But in reality, I'm going to move on to kind of using LinkedIn as a sales tool. So the first question I asked the audience when we had the workshop live was, who thinks they've got a personal brand? And surprisingly, very few people actually put their hand up to that. And it is a surprise because actually, very few people believe they've got a personal brand, and most people believe they don't have one. And the reality is, your personal brand is based on any time someone decides to interact with you in a live or virtual environment. So, however you've built your personal brand, whether you have or you haven't done it deliberately, curated, or accidental, I'm afraid to say, if you didn't think you had one, you're in the minority and you're very wrong because people view and judge you every time they interact with you or look at you, or even if they're not interacting, but seeing what you're posting and seeing what you're commenting on and seeing what your views and your values and that kind of thing are. So unfortunately, yes, you do have a personal brand. We all have one, whether it's curated, whether it's accidental, whether it's deliberate. And it's usually based on what people think of you on first or slightly longer impressions, depends on how often they see your kind of content or material. So it's really important that you take a bit of responsibility for curating it because an accidental personal brand is not something that you control. And it's much better to control what people think, view, and see of you than it is to have an accidental one. So we're going to talk about that in terms of curating that sort of professionalism in terms of your branding as an individual. So it's one significant purpose of LinkedIn is to support and curate that. And despite the company page, as it says there, it is primarily a personal platform. Although if you do run the company page or you do have a company page, I'd still actively encourage you to be growing those numbers on the company page and posting on the company page. But we'll talk about later with native content around, not just reposting that as an individual from your company, but doing something with that content. So a lot of businesses will have somebody responsible for marketing and social media. And social media itself is becoming a full-time role for organizations as well these days. That social media person will be responsible for the company page. And the company page has got validity, but it's not the be all and end all. You have to do something with that as an individual to curate this individual personal brand supporting the company values and messages, etc. Okay. The thing with personal brand, it covers a lot of areas, and this is just a snapshot, an infographic, if you like, of the kind of things that help to define you as an individual when it comes to a social media presence, predominantly in this case, LinkedIn. So the type of content you post, whether you are a video guy or lady or, just a written word, or you choose really interactive content, infographics or photographs or whatever it might be. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients, a guy called Richard Hall from PDM, has got a very defined style when it comes to his content. He speaks a lot at events. He goes to a lot of exhibitions. They exhibit at lots of exhibitions. And Richard will walk around with an iPhone or an Android, whichever it is, smartphone on a stick, and he'll walk into the venue and he'll do the walk and talk. I'm on my way to the, Design Council Awards in London. So he's walking along Euston Road. He's walking into the venue. He's showing the round. He's saying, I'm really looking forward to a great day. And that visual kind of approach is something that is a bit of a kind of Richard definition, really. When I see Richard speaking at an event, I expect now to see the sort of walk up, etc. And it's what I call stop the scroll. You look and you go, oh, video, I'll stop the scroll. So what kind of content are you posting? What are your values and how do you want to come across? And, there's an element of kind of consistency or otherwise with that. And it's how you use LinkedIn to create kind of an awareness of you as an individual. What do you stand for? What are your kind of beliefs, etc. And there's one further over directly opposite that says, what tone of voice would you like to use? So I like to use a tone of voice personally that is potentially informative and educational when I'm posting stuff about kind of business. If I'm posting stuff, I do post a Friday rant occasionally, which is just observations on life, being an old sort of bugger traveling around the UK. So I'll post things to moan about sort of middle laners on motorways and toasters in hotels that annoy everybody, and just observations really. So I like to put a bit of humour into those, and then I've got a third element of LinkedIn, which I've got a newish football podcast called the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast, and when I'm promoting that, I like to promote sort of content that challenges football fans to think about what they think about key subjects in those areas. So I've got three different tones of voice, but three very defined tones of voice when it comes to how I post, which is deliberate. What kind of audience do you want to attract, and how do you want to achieve that attraction, and what do you want to achieve with your personal brand on your social media presence, really? The key to this is what you're knowledgeable and passionate about, because knowledge and passion come across when it comes to values and content. People look at it and go, you seem to know what you're talking about. So when I give away content, like I'm giving away snippets of the online sales academy, for example, people might just go, oh, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I'm sharing my knowledge, my passion, and my energy for that particular area. How I'm going to communicate that? Well, obviously, I'm going to do that through on LinkedIn with posts. I'm going to communicate it through commenting on posts that are similar to mine with my viewpoint. I'm going to join groups and post it in groups, etc., etc. And then really, it's about creating that kind of vision of you as someone in the industry or sector that you work in as being knowledgeable, interesting, and relevant. So that's kind of the things that you got to wrap around. That's why it's a curated personal brand, not an accidental. An accidental one doesn't think about these things. However, it does deliver on these things, and you're not in control of it. Okay, so let's have a look at the ultimate end game. The ultimate end game is to become what they call a person of interest or an expert representing a business of interest. So, for example, if you're an IT company and you are specialists in IT security or AI or whatever, you want to be building a profile that positions that expertise as often and as relevantly as you can do. And if the business is expert in that field as well, then you want to piggyback and tag on to the back of that. And the end game is this phrase, thought leader, that people, I think I'd like to say, overuse a lot these days. I'm a thought leader in this, I'm a thought leader in that. It's kind of a strange kind of description for someone, particularly if you call yourself that. It's not something you can call yourself. It's something you might aspire to be, a thought leader, but it's an accolade bestowed upon you, really. And company content and company page will help you to position yourself alongside what the company's doing, but it's still about you as an individual. But the accolade of being a thought leader is something that somebody else will bestow upon you. You can't introduce yourself as, hi, my name's John, I'm a thought leader. It's like, wow, that is arrogant beyond belief. If you think you're a thought leader, get some validation from people. Do they value your content? Do they think you are ahead of the curve? Do they think you are sharing insights and valuable knowledge, etc.? Because if they don't, then that's just you hopefully believing that people value what you do. And I think people value what I do, but I would never, ever introduce myself as a thought leader in sales. It's just not right. If somebody else wants to call me that, that's up to them. Okay. Now, we are going to talk about your kind of profile as a starting point very briefly, because it's not a LinkedIn workshop on how to set up LinkedIn. This is about looking at what good looks like, and what good looks like from a keeping people interested enough to engage with you. So if your profile doesn't work as a landing point, game over anyway. So what looks good and what maybe doesn't look good. So inspiring a potential target audience, it starts with your profile. So I just picked an example of a contact of mine. She's also a friend of mine, a lady called Katie Thompson. Now, if you look at Katie's profile, that is exceedingly clear in terms of what Katie's about, okay? So Katie's from Katie Lingo. She's got a call to action, let's talk. She's a professional content marketing with a sense of humor because she's also bravely a stand-up comedian and pretty good at that as well, to be fair, I would say. But she's a professional content marketer with a sense of humor. It also lists on her backdrop the sort of 6 areas of her expertise. And it's got a website on there. So, copywriting, digital marketing, blogging, content strategy, proofreading and journalism. It also says under her kind of name piece, freelance copywriter and event speaker at Katie Lingo, content marketing services for digital agencies and SMEs. You are absolutely under no illusion as to what Katie's all about. So if you're in the market for content marketing, copywriting, blogging, content strategy, proofreading, etc., and you land on Katie's profile, I guarantee you're inclined to read on, scroll down, etc. And that's the first thing. We're going to come to your connections and your connection strategy shortly, and we're going to talk about your overall impact. But how clear, obvious, and impactful is it when you look at your landing point for your connections or potential connections? If you send a connection request to somebody, they're going to look at your profile and say, should I connect with this person? If I am working in an SME or an agency or an event sector, and I'm looking for someone as an event speaker or marketing services, content marketing services, and Katie reaches out to me with a connection request, I'm predisposed to say, yes, I'll take that connection request because of what she's done with the profile, okay? And it encourages exploration of her services further down her profile. And that's all you've got to do with your profile initially, is get people to engage with it further down where the interesting stuff is. But if you don't get that right, then that's a real challenge. Now, it's professional, it's consistent, and it looks great. Now, I also chose 2 people at random on the live webinar, and I chose them at random, but when I actually investigated their profiles, it worked out quite well. So the first one is a great example from a guy called Rob Walker, and Rob runs a company called Portfolio Display. And when you look at Rob's profile, he's got a decent profile picture, smiley guy, etc. I did say to him, and he will have changed it since, that the backdrop there does not do justice to the quality of his product. Now, they do digital displays for the motor industry, and so his strapline, director, creator, angel investor for Portfolio Display and Rally Digital is not really as powerful as Katie's, for example. So it's not bad. Could be better. The picture could be better. It could have, like Katie's has got, the services on there, digital signage for the motor industry, promotional flags and materials for the motor industry, whatever, on that actual backdrop picture. And his strapline, I'll come to it in a second, where it says director, creator, angel. He's got better further down his profile. So we talked about moving that up. Now, I also then looked at another guy who's in, I'll do the Rob bit first. So Rob has got digital wireless, digital pricing displays for motor groups, OEMs and independents. Working with OEMs and motor groups, we're transforming how car dealers send pricing and content to their vehicles for sale. Using new wireless technology, can have 100% accuracy and save hours of wasted time updating pricing and content. Now, I think an element of that, not all of that's too much, an element of that in bullet points could be on his picture with a really nice graphic. But I also think he could use some of that content, some of that wording underneath directly where it says Rob Walker, so that when you land on Rob Walker and you work in the motor industry, you're saying, so he's transforming how car dealers send pricing and content in their vehicles. That's interesting. Or he talks about digital pricing displays for motor groups, OEMs and independents. It's his choice, but the reality is, once he's done that, if you look at Rob Walker now as a profile change, he has changed his profile and it's sharper than it was, but it wasn't a bad starting point. And then I chose a difference, and it was just a guy who's been on my program right throughout. He's been on all 10 modules. Really nice guy called Chris Charlesworth, and he works with Complete IT Systems. And Complete IT Systems have been going a long time. They are absolutely fantastic as an IT solutions provider, and they do a whole lot of work around IT security, AI, technology, hardware, software, like the full works, and that's hence the name Complete, I guess, IT Systems. When you look at Chris's profile, Complete IT Systems, yes, he's got his branding on there, but it doesn't really say anything about the areas of expertise. And his devil in the detail sort of strapline under his name is a bit vague. He's also got a slightly weird photograph of him stood in front of Angel Wing. So, I wasn't picking on Chris. Chris readily accepted on the session that he sort of dabbled in LinkedIn a little while ago, hasn't done much since, and that's absolutely fine. And that's very, very common. People open a LinkedIn account, dabble about with it a bit, and then he just sort of dies on the withers on the vine. We've got over 500 connections, and those people, at some point will expect to see something of him and from him and whatever it might be. Now, the other thing is when you look at Chris's about, it says, been in the industry for many years, more years than I care to imagine and think about, covering a range of solutions from print to virtualization and everything in between. Specialities include audiovisual technology, backup and storage, cloud-based technologies and security. Talk to me if I can't find a solution to fit your budget. I'll know someone who can. So I like his call to action, and I really like his specialities include audio-visual technology, backup and storage, cloud-based technology and security. That just needs to be underneath his name where it says Chris Charlesworth. And Complete IT Systems as a backdrop needs a bit more bullet points and a bit of a call to action like a website on there. Other than that, that's just to tidy up. That makes a massive difference. But a key factor in terms of LinkedIn is, what if I do like what I see? So when you look at Rob's profile and you look at his contact information, Rob's done a great job. He's put his phone number on there. He's put his email address on there, his work email, not his blooming Gmail or Yahoo, which a lot of people do. It's not a CV site. Portfolio display, very easy to find. He's even put on there where we're based. And the one thing I did talk to him about is the profile naming piece, which has got the default Rob-Walker- then just some random numbers. So if you click on your profile, if you go onto your own profile and click on the little pen icon next to your LinkedIn URL, it will give you the option to request a change. Now, Rob Walker is a very common name, so it's unlikely. In fact, it's now impossible to suspect that Rob will get Rob-Walker and it will just stop there. But he might get Rob-Walker- displays or Rob-Walker- portfolio or something that he can then get rid of the randomness of that. But that's the only downside. He's very active in terms of availability. I like Rob's profile. I want to connect with Rob. I actually want to ring Rob about, I'm working in the motor trade. I want to ring Rob about some display material. I can ring him. I can email him. I know where they're based. Oh, okay, they're based in Yorkshire, like we are. Okay, I've got website details, making it simple. Conversely, Chris has got the default, but he's actually got an email on there, which is fine. But he's also got the same default there that Rob's got, which is the random numbers. I encourage anyone to at least try and personalize the LinkedIn URL, because then it goes on your footer on your email. You can put it on a business card if people still use business cards, or whatever. But it just looks a bit random with 97B 7307 on there. You can lose that. You can put Chris-Charlesworth-IT or something on there, or Chris-Charlesworth, because there's no other Chris Charlesworth's on LinkedIn. But he's also put his work email address, which is good, but that's all. I can't ring him because I don't know what his number is. I don't know where they're based, so that might not be an issue for me, or it might. So it just needs a bit of tidying up. Put your full contact information on, make sure people can contact you and make it easy for them. And then it comes to the experience piece, and this is the last bit I want to go through in terms of profile setting. But it's a really good chance to impress people. So when you look at Rob as portfolio, co-owner and director of portfolio since 2004, long established, Marshall Hall Mills, Elland, West Yorkshire. Portfolio display takes extreme care to position our clients. And you read through that, and it's really important. We're working with VW, Audi, Sytner, Arnold Clark. So if you work in the motor trade, that's quite relevant. We develop innovative point-of-sale material, fast at lowest prices, quality. All the messages are in there. I would encourage those to be more bullet pointy than just paragraphs. So, for example, the VW, Audi, Sytner, Arnold Clark could be bullet pointed so that people can see them quickly. The reasons that they do in terms of developing point of sale material. You could put fast, low price, quality of product, service, for example, in bullet points. But other than that, that's a great profile of, okay, I've seen his profile. I like it. He's about us. That looks good. I'll scroll down. What's this experience of this guy? Call to action, please get in touch with me directly. Okay, should say directly. It's grammatically incorrect, Rob, but if you're watching this, okay. By converse kind of exposure, when you look at it in terms of Chris's, he says 20 years plus in the industry selling IT and audiovisual kit and solutions. Talk to me about your plan, your pain points, and you get expert advice with a no nonsense attitude. I like that. I really like that. But is that one sentence, two lines, really selling 20 years plus of experience of a guy who's really, really knowledgeable and really practical and really good at what he does? I suspect it's not. Now, he's attached a little presentation, the complete IT systems presentation, but I also suspect if he's not looked at his LinkedIn profile for a while, that presentation may or may not be in date or out of date. So nice effort, but there's a lot more to you, Chris, than just a couple of lines and a sentence or two. So Chris's is fine. It's succinct. It shares a couple of areas of expertise. It's got an attached presentation, but given 20 years of experience, I think there's more to him than that. But it's very, very common that people's profiles look a bit more like Chris's than a bit more than like Rob's. So if your profile's brief and it doesn't really position your expertise in great detail, then just think about refreshing that and boosting it and building it up a little bit. Okay, so there's your profile piece, because people are going to find that when they see your posts or your connection requests or whatever it might be. So the next question is whether you want to connect or not connect, and whether you want to follow and whatever. So connect or not connect, that is the question. What is your connection strategy and why? So I'll give you an example. It could be quality or quantity, and it doesn't matter as long as it's your choice. But the reality is a lot of people start off with quality, and they say, I'm only going to connect with these people who are, in my sector or target sectors, or, they're in the same group as me, whatever it might be. And that's absolutely fine if that's your strategy. I'll give you a very live example. One of my clients, a guy called Mark Fernley, works at a company called Dynamic Business Services, and they're a really top quality, market leading digital learning company, e-learning company. Fantastic what they do. Mark was on LinkedIn from the early-ish days, and he had about 200 connections. But those connections were anybody and everybody. There's recruiters in there probably. There was probably anybody who just asked him to connect, whatever it might be. We looked at a strategy a number of years ago and said, here's your connection strategy. People who are senior L&D people, senior operations and commercial people, senior board level C-suite executives who make decisions about digital learning in their organizations. He's now got just short of 2,000 connections. His first 200 are random. His next 1,800 are really valuable to him because he's chosen a strategy that says, I'm going to connect with people who I think are likely to be interested in my services and products. And that's a deliberate strategy. So again, my strategy in the early days was, I'll only connect with you if I know you, or I'll only connect with you if we've met, or I'll only connect with you if I think you're of relevance and interest. And that went out the window quite quickly, and I've now got 10,000 connections. And the reality is I don't connect with anybody who's maybe a Nigerian prince looking for my bank details, or I don't connect with many recruiters unless they're clients of mine, because I don't want to be bombarded with recruitment opportunities. I'm not in that space, for example. But other than that, I'm not particularly selective. And the reality is you never know who knows who. So it's your choice, quantity or the quality. Now, your connection strategy should be based on who are you targeting as an individual to help you to sell more products or services. What are the job roles that work for you? So do you target L&D professionals like Mark does, learning and development, or are you targeting, in my world, sales directors or managing directors, or, that kind of thing? And when you look at that, I now have got probably several hundred sales directors and several hundred more sales managers and several hundred more, if not more, sales executives, because those job roles are important to me when I'm promoting my online academies, for example, or other materials, or just sharing content, because that's the audience in that space that I want to target. What sectors? For me, sectors are not that not relevant particularly, but I do like organizations that make stuff. So I do have quite a lot of manufacturers, engineering, those kind of companies, because I've got a lot of experience in those sectors. I also do a lot of work in construction, in and around construction. So again, I'm more predisposed to actively look for construction, engineering, manufacturing, etc., and job roles of people who would potentially sign off on my products or services. And that's why I do that. So my connection strategy, if I'm being proactive, is looking at that. But also another way of getting a better boost to your connection requests is not just to dive in and research um, operations director, sales director. So let's say a sales director at a big engineering company is a target of mine. And I actually definitely want to, raise my profile with that company, the sweet spot, exactly what I'm looking for, etc. If I just send a connection request to that individual, I'm personalizing it, but I'm probably buying a lottery ticket on the basis of whether or not they'll accept my connection request. So why don't I find them first of all, and why don't I engage with their content first and foremost? Just over a week or two, just have a look at what they're posting and just like or comment, or even if it's interesting, share it with your network. But a like or a comment, because when you like or comment on that, people see your name and the photograph, the little profile photograph. So this person who's never heard of me suddenly sees, over a couple of days or a couple of weeks, Nick Bramley, from IMPACTUS. Oh, he's liked a couple of my posts there. Oh, okay, no problem. Doesn't really care, but he sees the name Nick Bramley, sees the little photograph Nick Bramley, etc. Comment, like, or share, and then when they've seen your name and they see you and that kind of thing, then you send them a connection request, because when you send them that connection request, they're more predisposed to say yes, because they know who you are, albeit vaguely. So it's increasing significantly, I mean significantly, your chances of success. So if you do want to connect with somebody, give yourself the best chance of an acceptance. Make it personal. Don't just send the default connect, 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 connect. Now, I know LinkedIn really is annoying now, because it sort of reduced significantly the amount of free stuff it gives you on the free kind of use of the app. So what I would say to you is, if you're going to have, as a result of this workshop, or just a strategy for improving your LinkedIn profile, a blitz, then just take a free month of LinkedIn Premium and make sure you cancel it at the end, and they won't charge you for it. And in that LinkedIn Premium, you get many, many more personalization of invites. So I think you get 5 a month, which is rubbish now on the free one, but you get maybe 100 a month on the premium. But if you do it for a month free, you still get that 100 on that month. It'll help you to blitz and grow your network quite quickly, but doing what I've said earlier. Okay, but when you make it personal, make it of interest to the person. This is one. Hi, Jen. As we work extensively across the retail sector, I would like to connect with you on here and hope to be able to accept this request. Please check out our services to see what we offer. And this is from Dynamic Business Services. This is Mark. Thanks for your consideration, Mark. So he's followed Jen. He's commented and liked on a couple of posts that Jen's been involved in. He's reached out to her. He said, yeah, and he's given her a reason. We work across the retail sector. You're in the retail sector, Jen. That's what we do. Just check out our services here. And that services one there links to their retail offering as well. Thanks for your consideration. Now, he's not doing that to sell anything to Jen. He's just trying to make it more relevant when you got a link to a landing page, because what happens is it goes in like that. So that message will also have that little graphic in there, and it gives Jen a reason to accept. The question I've got for you is, where is the best version of your business? And what I mean by that is, where would you take them if you put a link in to a connection request? Would it be the home page, which is often quite boring? The About Us page, because it's got more information? Would it be your testimonials page? Would it be your case studies page? You choose, because you want them to land where you want them to land. Don't make them work for it. What I'd say to you is the increased level of connection success with the follow them first, like and comment, then reach out to them, but reach out to them with a personal invitation, potentially with a link in there, is significant in terms of the results you'll get from LinkedIn. Because the frustration of LinkedIn is, I send connection requests, no one comes back to me. If you just send the default, I'd like to connect, I'd like to connect, I'd like to connect, you're not giving them a reason to do so. Make it easier. The next one is follow you, follow me kind of approach, really. And the reality of following is you should follow everyone worth following. And there's no downside to this whatsoever. Everyone in your CRM, you should look on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with them, connect, but at the very least, follow the people who are in your CRM that you're already doing work with or prospecting or whatever it might be. Existing customers, prospects, suppliers, you target LinkedIn connections. Every new LinkedIn connection should automatically follow them. And maybe incentivize them to follow you as well. I've currently got 450 followers. When I get to 500, the last 50 will be in a draw for an iPad or a box of chocolates or whatever it might be. But there really is, as I said earlier, zero downside to following. And the reason I encourage you to follow is because you will then see what they're posting, because LinkedIn looks at it and goes, you're interested in this person. So it will push their algorithm content to you and you'll see what and that allows you then to build a relationship through commenting, liking, reaching out to them saying, I saw your post on XYZ. I found that really insightful. I'd like to talk to you about how we might be able to support that requirement you raised in that particular post itself. You should be following anyone and everyone who might just be of interest to you. However, when you've connected with somebody, you mustn't commit the cardinal sin of LinkedIn, okay? And I don't know what cardinal sin pale ale tastes like, but it does exist, okay? And that is, you connect with somebody, 10 seconds later, you send them a pitch. So the link in the email invite, the connection request invite to Jen wasn't a sales pitch. It was just saying, hey, Jen, you might be interested in, this is why I'm reaching out to you, because you might be interested in what we do. No sales pitch, just information. What you mustn't do then is ring or follow up Jen 10 seconds after you can accept your connection request. Hi, Jen, thanks for connecting. I want to talk to you about digital learning. We're brilliant at this, brilliant that. Want to sell you this, want to sell you that. It's absolutely the biggest turn off possible. Don't do that. What you can do, alternatively, once you've connected with somebody, is show your gratitude and share something with them. So, for example, hi, Jen, it's great to connect with you. Thanks for being a new connection. I look forward to seeing and sharing some interesting content over the coming months. In the meantime, here's a link to an earlier post of mine. It seems to resonate and I think it might be of interest to you. It's basically, you put in there a link to something that's of relevance. And this particular link, again, opens up the original post. So, for example, this one here, this isn't Jen, I just use that as an example. This is to someone who works in construction, who's connected with me, and there's nothing in this for me whatsoever. It's basically, I saw this lady speak at an event in construction to a room full of site safety engineers, and she had 80 blue-collar, hard-ass blokes in tears telling the story of how her brother was electrocuted and killed in a workplace accident. And it was the most powerful thing I've seen as a speaker in a safety environment. So if Jen works in construction, I want to share this post with her and say, look, this is the kind of thing I'm involved in, is, working with really good people. I'm not trying to sell her anything. I'm just saying, look, Jen, have a look. You might find this interesting. And I send that, and that link opens up with that picture. That's the link on there with the picture of the lady with the backdrop of her brother's presentation. And it means I've showed them I'm worthy of their interest. Now, Jen's going to either ignore it, do something with it, whatever, but I'm not selling her anything. I'm sharing something of potential interest and value. And I think in this case, when I did a promotion of this particular kind of post, I got lots of people saying, wow, that's excellent. Wow, that's fascinating. Or we've seen, I can't remember the lady's name. I apologize to her for that. We've seen her speak before. She's like amazing or whatever it might be. So share something of interest once you've connected with them. Okay. Now it comes to sharing your content, posting stuff, and then liking and all that kind of thing. So let's start with LinkedIn, in the first instance, you can't do occasional posting and expect to get results. It just doesn't work. And it doesn't work because LinkedIn's got an algorithm that runs behind the whole, this massive sort of database of kind of content creation and distribution. And it looks at it and goes, yeah, you're not very active, are you? You're not doing a lot. Why should we bother? So it just doesn't bother. Next thing is it doesn't build momentum. It doesn't build the audience because LinkedIn won't push your content to the audience that you want with occasional posts. It doesn't like it. The algorithm is, and it's very hard to work out what the algorithm is exactly doing this week or next week or last week. But what I will say to you is, I guarantee if you only post once in a blue moon, your post will literally just wither on the vine. You might get, a few likes and a few kind of impressions, but nowhere near what the reach could be and should be with a bit more activity. Um, the other thing is LinkedIn likes what I call native content. So I'll give you an example. Um, if you have a company page and a company social media person who is creating company social media content, that's brilliant, right? Okay, it's great. So they post that. But a lot of people, what they do is then they'll just repost that. They'll just say, so let's say uh, Chris Charlesworth at Complete IT Systems has someone in-house who does their social media or an agency. If Chris just reposted the company page, that doesn't do anything whatsoever. LinkedIn just looks at it and goes, well, that's a bit lazy. He needs to repost that content with his comments. So this is a great piece from our company. I'm delighted to say that we've solved this particular problem for this particular client in the case study below. Just to, a couple of lines, a couple of sentences, reposting with his comments. That's going to increase the reach significantly. Better than that, he takes the content from the company page and reposts it as if it's come from Chris Charlesworth. So it's Chris Charlesworth's view on the content. He'll rewrite the wording in the third person rather than the company name, but he'll post it from Chris Charlesworth. So if you can do that, native content. If you can't do that, repost, but repost with comments. Don't just repost. It's absolutely worthless, pointless just reposting because it doesn't get you anywhere. Also, to like or not to like, there's no downside in liking content. And I say to people, look, LinkedIn should be 20 minutes once a day. What I mean by that is just, sit there while you're having your lunch on your phone and seeing what it throws into your feed and just, like or comment on stuff. Because what LinkedIn does, it looks at it and goes, oh, this person's active on LinkedIn. So, oh, okay. So they might not be posting much, but they're liking, they're commenting, they're sharing, they're reposting. Okay. Doesn't take any time to do any of that, by the way. And then the reality is they look at it and go, okay. So when you do post, even if it's slightly more occasionally than you'd like it to be, at least LinkedIn knows you're alive and kicking, and it will then probably support it a little bit more with the algorithm. So little and often on wins the day in terms of looking at sort of LinkedIn use. Um, it's about building this know, like, and trust momentum. We've talked about that in the sales campaign, the sales academy. Sales is really about, I know you, I like you, I trust you. Well, you can do that I get to know you by seeing your content, but I get to know you by you seeing my content and liking and commenting on it and whatever. And they start to trust you and you trust them. I guarantee, by the way, if I post something, I can guarantee probably 8 of the first 10 people who will interact with that content. Now, from a business point of view, most of those 8 are not really interesting to me, but I really appreciate them, interacting with that content quite early because the more early interaction with the content, the more LinkedIn looks at it as live content that's interesting. It'll push you out further and push you out further. Weirdly, what you think happens with LinkedIn is, if I've got 10,500 connections, I post something and all 10,500 will see it. That's not how it works. LinkedIn will look at it and go, right, okay, I'll push this out to, I don't know, let's say it's out of 10,000. I'll push it out to 250 people into their feed, usually recent connections and or people who follow you recently or are active in terms of following you and commenting and liking on your posts. So what will happen is it'll push you out to those. If I get no traction, so I don't get many likes or comments or shares, then it's probably going to go out to another couple of hundred. If it starts building very quick, very early momentum, it'll boost it and go it out from there. So occasionally I'll get a post that just goes bonkers. And I've had a post that got to just short of 500,000 impressions. 500,000, right? It wasn't even a post about business, but let's not go there. It was a post about Father's Day. Anyway, 500,000, but it got to 500,000 because it got to 10,000 quickly. Once you got to 10,000, it was just like a snowball. I just watched the numbers. It wasn't the vanity thing, but once it got near, didn't quite break 500,000. And at that point, I was gutted because I was thinking, oh, 500,000, fantastic. But most of my posts will get to 3,000, 5,000, but some will just die. Some will just go, I got 650. I don't care. I care about the quality of the engagement, not the numbers. But the numbers will help if you want to get that sort of reach. So, little and often looking at it, posting on a regular basis, and then making sure you're liking and commenting and reposting with comments. But then people say to me, well, I'm not a bloody social media writer. I'm not a content writer. What am I going to post? What am I going to share? I don't know what to do. Well, it's fairly straightforward, okay? You've got to build your audience with stuff that you think might be of interest. So, you have to be seen as someone worth following. You have to inspire them. You have to have a plan. You have to commit to it, and you have to mix it up a bit. So, as I say, video, posts, case studies, people, all that kind of stuff. We'll come to it in a second. It sounds like a lot of work, but what else do you get out of life without putting a bit of work into it? Of course, you have to put a bit of work into it. So it's best to have a bit of a plan or a bit of an idea of saying, right, okay, this month we're going to focus on IT security. Next month we're going to focus on the people behind the business. The month after that we're going to focus on developments in AI. Then we're going to put some more personal stuff in there. Then we're going to put some case studies in there, whatever. But you have to be ready to put some stuff out there, okay? So we'll come to the kind of things that you might want to think about, the easy stuff, as I would call it, okay? So what do your audience value? What might they want to know? Okay, so what do they not know about you? So, for example, it might be that you as an individual have got an interesting backstory, or the company's got a backstory. How did you start and develop and evolve, for example? There's a story there. People like to know about people, they like to know about companies, like to know backstories and interesting sort of gossipy stuff, really. What's happening in your sector or what's happening in their sector? What's your opinion on that? What's your viewpoint? It could be a political opinion about what's happening with the government in terms of support for business or whatever it might be. It could be. So I use the cyber sort of security as an example because we all have IT. So I'm not just harboring on that point particularly, but we all sort of kind of get it. But when there was a big kind of attack on the likes of Marks and Spencer's and various other big organisations where data breaches were there and it was public domain information, headline news on BBC News and News at 10, etc., and social media. If I worked in IT security, I'm posting on there, what my view is on that and how to prevent it and what to look for and all that kind of positioning my expertise against a known industry kind of news story, if that makes sense. So what is happening in the news? A lot of people value top tips, so on a regular-ish basis, not as often as I should, because it's a plumber's tap. I know how to do it all, but I don't necessarily always get time to do it. I'll share top tips on networking, top tips on prospecting by phone, top tips on being a disciplined sales professional. Whatever it might be, and I've got loads and loads of content. For goodness sake, I've got 10 online sales academies. If I just broke those down into, top tips on each one of those 10 areas, I've got content for the next, 6 months or whatever it might be. But I share those top tips. I'm giving away free information. So people say, why would you do that? Well, I do it because it shows I'm someone of interest or relevance or value or knowledge. So why wouldn't I do that? Because then they look at it and go, this guy's a guy who's worth following. This guy's a guy worth knowing. This guy's a guy worth exploring if we've got some sales training requirements, for example. Frequently asked questions is a good one. What do you get asked regularly by your customers? I guarantee you got regular questions that your customers ask you about your business. If you've got a frequently asked questions page on your website, that's great. but why not convert that to a post? These are the top 5 things we get asked all the time about XYZ. Boom. It's a really interesting post because that's giving away knowledge and information about how people do business with you. There's loads of national and international days, National Bring Your Cat to Work Week, National, International Women's Day, National, I don't know, eat a chocolate brownie day or whatever it might be. There's a day and a week for everything. Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day. There's 101. If you look at a calendar of, days of importance, you'll always find a theme. So why not tag on the back of that? I'll take an example, International Women's Day. My feed is full on International Women's Day of posts about women of substance, women of interest, women of impact. And it's great to see because what people are doing is they're going, it's International Women's Day, what can we post? It's International Women's Day, what can we say? It's International Women's Day, what can we share about the women who work in our organisation? And it's great to see. What's not great to see is they don't post again until next International Women's Day, which is a year down the line. So, tag on to something that's happening already. And what can you intrigue people with? What value add, what interest can you create? Okay. So there's those elements of your content. People like the personal stuff as well, but it has to be the know, like, and trust rule. I need to know you and like you and build a trust. And one of my clients every Friday posts a meet the team kind of LinkedIn post, profile post. And it's just a bit predictable now because every Friday that's what they do. But they also post about the fact that they're going to an exhibition. They also post about the fact that they're developing a new product. So, you can forgive them the personal stuff every Friday. It's just a bit formulaic now because they've been doing it for quite a while. So it's mixing it up a little bit, but there's no downside to me knowing who the people behind the business are, and whether I like their background. I quite like their backstory. I quite like their expertise and knowledge and stuff. So, okay, why wouldn't I do that? So, there's loads of things you can do. I'll put different content types as well. I'll just put a little graphic up, which is looking at social media content and the difference between owned and shared and linked and embedding, etc. I'm just going to leave that there for you to look at and read because it's fairly straightforward and fairly obvious. But, don't be afraid to mix it up in terms of the type of material that you look at. So, for example, broadcast content is you simply share a message and there's no call to action. Conversation is where you post something where you're asking for a comment or a poll or a viewpoint or whatever it might be. And it becomes a conversation, which is much better than just broadcasting. Broadcasting is just dead content. Once the content's out there, it's not expected to do anything. Lo and behold, it probably doesn't. Conversational stuff is what's your view on this and what's your view on that. So when I do a Friday rant, for example, I did a Friday rant last week on middle lane drivers. So I've done a lot of motorway miles that week and, frustrated hell with the people driving the middle lane. And on the post, it just says, and what's your view? And my God, have I been inundated with people. It's nothing to do with me as a sales professional or a business development expert or a, God forbid, thought leader or whatever. But it is just I've had probably 20 odd thousand impressions and 250 comments and shares and little threads of comments and viewpoints and all that kind of thing. Now, if I repeat that in a business sense, and talk about, I'll give you one example. Is telephone sales dead? Question mark. What do you think? I'll get lots of transactional kind of input to that particular post. If I just post out there and saying, I think telephone sales is dead, which I don't think it is, by the way, I won't get anywhere near as much as it's broadcast versus conversation. Have a look at that. Just read through what your type of content that you're producing or intend to produce. Okay. Next one, it's about inspiring your audience. So pick a topic. I've put a number on here. There's all sorts. There's whatever the bandwagon in your industry is. Whilst these don't necessarily help you to sell, and they're not about selling, they are about raising your profile and differentiating you. So, I've got clients who post extensively on sustainability or innovation or opinion pieces or industry trends, or knowledge transfer just means they're giving away information that's of value. So I'll take one, which is the kind of innovation and a little case study of innovation. Okay. So this is one of my clients I mentioned earlier, Richard from PDM, the guy who speaks and does his little video walkthroughs, etc. Um, but they are a product design studio and they do a lot of work around med tech and medical devices. So if you want a medical device designing or redesigning or engineering or whatever fit for manufacture, PDM do that. But to be fair, so do 25 other businesses within a 10-mile radius, 25-mile radius of PDM. So if they just position themselves as a product design studio, which they did from 2003 when they started to about 2021, they were successful. And they were growing, but did not differentiate themselves from the 24 other ones within a stone's throw of the office. So they said, we'll rethink how we position ourselves. And in the medical tech industry, a lot of people use the word innovation and, the fact that PDM were coming up with some innovative solutions to, med tech design and whatever. So they went from that sort of, I mean, I've always said to Richard, the MD, he's a lovely guy, but their logo is really boring, the grey sort of white logo PDM. What they did is they created an innovation portal called From the Studio. And the innovation portal, that's just a snapshot with those 9 kind of grids on there. Just a snapshot. If you go onto the PDM websites, pd-m.com, and then look at their From the Studio portal, it's lively, it's vibrant, and it's full of innovation. And what it does, it drives people to look at what they think about innovation. So anything that's Cerise Pink, Amal Latif, Sarah Hex, Damon Bonsor, for example, they are podcasts about innovation, talking to innovators in medtech. And there's probably 20 of them on there now. The top line is just thought pieces, funny little intro. Oh, I wish I'd designed that, or things you can't live without. Toys and tech we loved as kids. The little personal things, just little things about innovation, and Lego was a great choice, but Lego's innovating because it's now got all sorts of different products within the Lego range. It was dying as a brand because it was just boring and staid. Now they've got everything from, Transformers and electric motor stuff and T-Rexes and whatever. And Lego's a growing brand, but we loved it as kids for different reasons. And then the other piece along the bottom row are value-added pieces like how to map innovation in your organization, how do you navigate the innovation journey, how do you take an idea to market. I've got an idea, but I don't know what to do with it. And there's dozens and dozens of pieces on their portal, which is from the studio, still within PDM. They now talk about being an innovation studio, and they create content around innovation. And guess what? They're getting lots and lots of people inquiring about innovation in medtech because of the content they create, the lane they chose. They chose that as an area of expertise that they could absolutely sit alongside and take ownership of. I put a link to Richard's video style I mentioned earlier on the slide deck there. So if you clicked on that slide deck link, it'll just show you the type of video I mean. Richard walking into an event, whatever it might be. Okay. The other thing to think about is using LinkedIn as an event platform. So if you go down the left-hand side of your profile, it'll say, groups, etc. It'll also say events, and events are easy to set up. I'm not going to go through how to set it all up, but it's literally a 5-step process, okay? So I'll give you an example. Dynamic Business Services, in 2023, we put together an event to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the NHS. We did that because Dynamic Business Services had been working with the NHS for over 24 years, 140 organisations, and more than 250 digital e-learning topics have been delivered in that 24 years. So we just thought, you know what, why don't we showcase what's next, what's new, what's happening? And we just called it, Think You Know What the NHS Digital Learning Looks Like, Think Again. And we just created this 50-minute webinar online. And basically, that webinar was designed to attract people in the NHS to give up 50 minutes of their time to look at 5 or 6 case studies that they might not have even thought about. And digital learning has moved on a long way from being PowerPoint, point and shoot, answer a question, move to the next one. And Dynamic are absolutely exceptional. They've got digital learning for CPR. They've got digital learning for open heart surgery. Like, wow, amazing stuff. So what you do is you create the event and you invite your target audience to that event, and you do it all through LinkedIn. So you just basically look at your target audience. So for example, when I was doing the online sales academy, I was just going to all my sales directors and going click, 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 click. And it says I'd like to invite you to click, 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 click. And it was the invite goes out. Now the beauty of this is if someone just clicks yes, they've not really thought about it, but they've said, yeah, yeah, okay. That means they're interested in your event. If they don't attend the event online or whatever it might be, if they don't attend, then it doesn't really matter because you know they were interested. So what Dynamic did with they had their attendees on the day who attended, and they saw the case studies live presented by Lisa. So it was like a podcast. I interviewed her with leading questions, and she said, "Funny you should ask that, Nick. Let me show you what we've done about this." For example, it was just a very, very sorry about the pun, dynamic event on NHS content. Went really well. So those who were there had the benefit of the live event. Those who weren't there, we sent them a copy of the recording. We also copy recorded it for everybody who was there and sent it out for afterwards as a reminder. But it generates a warm pipeline of people who say, I'm interested in that content, so I'm interested in you. I'm also interested in your content, but I didn't turn up. But I must have been interested in your content to click yes. So that gives you another pipeline on that basis. So if you've got something you can create an event for, a webinar, a showcase, case study sharing, whatever, think about using LinkedIn events. It's a brilliant pipeline builder. Absolutely brilliant for that. Now, next one, rule of thumb, LinkedIn posting content, whether your content's insular or whether it's value add to your audience. Okay, so I'll give you an example. It's tone of voice and also value add. So here's an example. Nobody cares about you, and that's why your content isn't landing. This is a response to a lady. This week, a lovely lady who is an ADHD coach asked me why her content wasn't getting any traction. She was saying, I showed them how I changed my diet to help my ADHD. I use cold water therapy to help my ADHD. So what? Big deal. No one cares. They care about themselves. They don't care about your cold water therapy, your ADHD. So people don't engage with stories, but they engage with how that story impacts on them. So the story is impressive, the story is valuable, but the content is all about your journey. People just scroll past, okay? So why not say, I changed my diet, it helped my ADHD. Try, are you struggling with ADHD? Changing your diet could make a huge difference. Or instead of using, I use cold water therapy for my ADHD, cold water therapy might be the ADHD game changer you've been looking for. So what it's saying is, I'm going to share with you something that you might be interested in. So next time you create a post, before you post it, ask yourself, is it about me or us, or is it about the audience? And that's just a simple way of reframing the same story in a different way. And I love this phrase. I'm not going to claim any credit for it. I'm going to give the credit to a guy called Josh Gungeon, who's on the next slide. Your story should be the bridge, not the destination. I love that phrase. Kind of just absolutely definitely demonstrates what it's about. You know, it's taking them on a journey. It's taking them over from where they are now to where they want to get to. It's the bridge, not the destination. Take people on that journey. Now, the reason I've said about Josh is a co-owner of a company called Production House, and he is a absolute genius at generating content that grows audiences. He's particularly a YouTube specialist, but he's also a content specialist across all areas of content. If you've heard of Beard Meets Food, then he's the guy behind helping that to reach, thick end of 1 million subscribers and viewers of a video channel, because he knows how to get content into the psyche of a potential audience. So I'll put a click here because there's a little post that he did on LinkedIn that explains brilliantly that backstory on the ADHD lady, for example. So it's worth clicking on that link and watching Josh in action. Okay. So the reality is, there's more to LinkedIn than just you, and more to you than just posting, because LinkedIn groups are still valuable as well. So, for example, when you look at a LinkedIn group, it might be that I want sales professionals, Yorkshire. And if I put sales professionals Yorkshire in a group search, funnily enough, there's probably a Sales Professionals Yorkshire group. I'll come on to that shortly in terms of searching. But once you've got a strategy, make sure you're clear, concise, consistent, and as far reaching as you can be. So I'll give you an example on my football podcast, the Half an Hour Scar football podcast with Nick and Dom. There's a little promotion. There's the full title. I post on LinkedIn as just in my normal anyone. We've created a group on LinkedIn for the Half an Hour Scar football podcast, and I post in there. It comes out every Monday. This is my Monday morning routine. But I also post in 6 global football groups, so football agents, the world of football. I can't remember what the groups are called, but these are groups that have got football content in there, and I post in there as well. I get most of my traction for the football content goes through my Half an Hour Scar football groups. People have chosen to be in there as a result of being interested in the podcast. I get a decent level of response to my anyone post. But if I add up the 6 groups, add up to more than both of those put together. So don't be frightened of looking for groups where you can post your content as well. Okay, so being a person of interest, a thought leader, whatever it might be, own your digital space. Make sure your content works. Align yourself with other content that fits in the bill. So again, go back to Richard. Anything about innovation in medtech, he'll comment, like, share, repost with comments, etc. Connections, connectivity, digital activity and footprint, visibility, regular positive action. I say you could be calling, supporting your personal brand. But you also have to have sales instincts as well. And this is the bit that I don't see very often when it comes to sort of LinkedIn and people using sales instincts, for example. So if you post something and then somebody likes or comments and you think, okay, great, I've got a like or a comment. That's where it stops for most people. But what if that like or comment is from a prospect or a customer you haven't heard from for ages, or someone that you really would like to do business with? Then you go off LinkedIn, you pick up the phone, you start to engage them properly in a normal sales cycle. So use your sales instincts. Why is that person interacting with that content? What do they do? Is that of interest to me? And should I reach out to them properly as a sales professional? Because it's not just about the impressions, and it's not just about the likes. For me, it's about the quality and the people and the roles of people who are engaging with my content, particularly when I'm doing the sales content, not necessarily the football content, but certainly the sales content. If I get an interaction from a sales director on one of my sales posts, and my top tips post, for example, I'm going to wonder why they're engaged with my content. And on that basis of engaging with my content, why don't I just reach out and have a chat with them? That's your sales instincts. Don't use LinkedIn as a noise creator if you're not going to do anything about the noise that you created. Okay. Influence of the LinkedIn algorithm. It is weird, but there's some things you can do to help yourself, first of all. So what does the algorithm like? It likes a full LinkedIn profile. So it likes a LinkedIn profile that looks like you've given some thought to it. You filled in all the sections. You've got a picture on there, that kind of thing. It likes regular active participation, we mentioned earlier, native content and shared company content, but with your comments. There's also a thing which is an 18-hour posting window. So I've got a mate of mine who posts 2 or 3 times a day, and it's only because I haven't had a chance to talk to him. He's killing himself doing 2 or 3 a day because his first post might start to take off. He posts again, and the second and third one will either kill the first one or they'll all 3 of them will die, because LinkedIn algorithm looks at it and goes, I don't know what to do with this. There's too much going on. So what it does, it just almost switches off the reach. So don't post twice within an 18-hour window. So essentially posting once a day is okay. 2 or 3 times a day, you're doing yourself no favors. You might think you are, but you're not. Your reach will die. It'll just wither on the vine. It likes you to be involved in group membership, likes you to participate in the groups with the odd comment and like or whatever. And it likes to see early momentum on posts. So I've got all my WhatsApp connections, I've got a group of people on WhatsApp. If I've got a post I really want to get out there, so let's say I'm promoting the Online Sales Academy at the start, I send a little link on a WhatsApp group and say, I'd really like some help with getting this off the ground. A like or a comment or a share be really appreciated. And I put a link into the post, boom it out there, and then people go, great post, Nick, really interesting. Oh, you should be going on this. And LinkedIn sees that and says, this post's been up for half an hour. He's got, 120 impressions. He's got 6 comments, 8 comments, 12 likes, whatever. Oh, actually, we're going to reach this out and push it about. There's a bit more going on with this post. So again, who can influence your post? Don't do it all the time, because it's a bit rude. It likes short form video over flat photography. And it likes you to stay on the LinkedIn platform. So, for example, if you put an external link in your post, so here's a link to, boom, in your post, LinkedIn doesn't like it as much, because what it's saying is, you're trying to take people off my platform. So if you do a post where you want to share a link, just put link in the comments and then put the link in the comments, so that the post itself doesn't have an external link, which is then going to be the thing that LinkedIn doesn't like. There's LinkedIn newsletters and there's LinkedIn events. I mentioned those as well. So, there's a lot going on, and it'll support those it sees as supporting the platform. Obviously, it's got AI and stuff running in the background, and it's looking and going, right, is this person worthy of my support and attention? Are they putting themselves, out for my platform? If they are, I'll support them. It's as simple as that. Talk about short form video. It really, anyone can make a video. It's very simple. You've all got the technology. So start with something simple, a simple short message, maybe accompanying an article. Don't worry about production values. Just do it on a smartphone. As long as the lighting's okay, you're okay. Try Zoom. Record yourself on Zoom or Teams or whatever, or a smartphone. Just record yourself and see what it looks like. Have a call to action. What do you want them to do with that video? Do you want them to read the article? Do you want them to reach out to you? Do you want them to book a place on a LinkedIn event, whatever? And just keep practicing and refining. Now, despite how I look, I'm very camera ready. I've been in front of cameras many times. I speak at conferences and events, etc., and that's great. But the minute someone sticks a professional camera under your nose, you sound like a gibbering wreck. And I'll give an example. I was creating some 1-minute short form videos for a client. I'm speaking on their behalf at a conference. And because they're a broadcast technology company and they also do video production, they set it up in the studio. So we had 2 cameras, we had proper professional lighting, and I was just going to talk to camera about these 2 separate training little sessions. I'm doing sort of half an hour short, sharp training sessions at this conference. God, I could do that with my eyes shut, until they put the cameras and the lights on. And the first one was like take 3, take 4, take 5. I couldn't even get my name right. But don't worry, just have a go. Just go, don't just go, I'm rubbish at this, I won't do it. Just practice, you get better at it. But if I did a camera piece myself with my iPhone on a tripod and talk to it, I'd be fine. If you're doing that, by the way, there's lots of things these days have got an auto cue, which you look straight into the camera and the auto cue rolls on your screen. Nobody can see it. So try the technology. Video is much better for stopping the scroll than flat photography. So, if you got an image, have a controversial image or a thought-provoking image or a wow image. If you got video stop the scroll. Short, sharp, insightful, clear, structured, and engaging. Short, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, half a minute, whatever, maximum minute. So then we talk about LinkedIn being a search and research tool, okay? It's just a massive free CRM. It's how you use it and what you pay for and what you want to do with it, really. Its power is in how you use it, as it says there. And essentially, you've got people, companies, and groups and things you want to do with each one of those. So it can be huge. It can be seen as too big, but reality is it's down to you. Who do you want to talk to? What groups do you want to be involved in? What kind of sectors are you targeting and approaching, for example? So let LinkedIn help you, for example. So when you type in someone, if I typed in Chris Charlesworth, who was on the call, down the right-hand side, it'll say, oh, people who look for Chris Charlesworth also looked at these people. Now, I'm already connected to Paul. I'm already connected to Ben. But if I wasn't, I'd be interested in Ben Gregg, Sales Director. I'd be interested in Paul Spencer, the MD. I'm not connected to Lisa, who's one of Chris's colleagues. Why am I not connecting to Lisa? So I'd reach out to Lisa and say she's a senior account manager. She might be interested in some of my content going forward. I'd send her a personal message, Lisa, connected to Chris Charlesworth and some of your colleagues. I'd love to connect with you. Boom. Why wouldn't I? Let LinkedIn help you. Don't ignore the stuff down the right-hand side. If you search for a profile, it'll find profiles that it thinks you like. So the more connections you've got with a bit more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistency. It will know. So it might say you're looking for sales directors, you might operations directors, it might based on sector, it might be based on seniority, but it'll throw things at you and go, hey, God, why not? Why not? And that's where your 20 minutes once a day comes in, building your connection strategy. The next thing, from a search engine point of view, you know, put manufacturing into LinkedIn. It'll come up with companies who work in manufacturing because you put company search for manufacturing companies, and it'll find companies on there and it'll help you to go, oh, okay, I'm looking for a medical device company, or they're based in California. So you can filter it by, location, size, etc., etc. But then if you look at people in manufacturing rather than companies in manufacturing, then it gives you individuals who work in a manufacturing environment. And again, that might be useful to you if you're working and looking to find, people who work in engineering, manufacturing, commercial. Andy Bowen, he works in Coventry. He's the founder of Bowen Brothers Manufacturing and Lean Principles. If that's your bag, if that's the people you want to work with, Andy Bowen's right there in front of you because his search has helped you to find him. Same with Veli Mololulu, again based in Bolton, manufacturing operations director at Morrison's. You think, well, you know what? He might be interesting to me. I've found him. I'll reach out to him and I might send him some information. But before I do that, I'm just going to follow him for a little while. I'm going to comment on his post for a little while. I'm going to like some of his posts and he's going to get to see me and more likely want to connect with me. Okay, filters are on there, connections, companies, location, you put whatever you want in there. In terms of manufacturing Yorkshire, I looked here for groups, in terms of groups for manufacturing Yorkshire. For example, professionals in Yorkshire manufacturing, 308 members. Well, there's 308 people who don't know me already. If I was working in that sector, why not? I'd look at this one here, FMCG Production Manufacturing Yorkshire, 3 members, never joined a group with 3 members. What I mean by that is someone set the group up a while ago, didn't do anything with it, and it's just him and his 2 mates or her and the 2 mates. And reality is there's no value add in joining that group with 3. But if you look at Made in Yorkshire, there's 1,158 members. If that is a group you want to join, just click on join and it'll either accept you or it won't accept you. Once you're in there, I always publish a post that says, I'm not sure if it's one of those groups that we should introduce ourselves. I'm assuming it is, so I apologise if it isn't, but hey, here's me. So it's almost like asking for forgiveness rather than seeking permission. Why wouldn't you do that? And then you're in Made in Yorkshire and you just follow the group and see what's being posted and who's posting it and connection growth and knowledge and information. It's really just a big database, as I say. This is a particular one, training managers group. So I'm looking for training managers groups who I work with. Training managers group there, 228,000 members. L&D and training professionals, 1 million members. Why wouldn't I join those groups? There's an audience in there. I'm not saying I get out 1 million members or 228,000 members. If I post training content in those groups and they accept that post, which some of them do readily and some, it has to be checked by the administrator, then on that basis, I'm getting my content out there to a wider audience and a very specifically wider audience. Okay. I said post to get to know you, post in each new group. Oh, I just thought I'd, introduce myself. I'm not sure if it's okay, but I'm assuming it is. This is me. It's what we do. It's why I'm in the group, etc. And then every post that you post in your everyone or anyone sort of capacity that goes to all your connections or will go out to all your connections at some point, then if it's relevant to that group, post in every group every time. So when I do the podcast that comes out on a Monday, as I mentioned, I post to anyone. I post in the group that we created that I'm the administrator for, which is Half and Half Scar Football Podcast. And I post to 6 other podcast groups, 6 other LinkedIn groups that are all football related every single time. Why wouldn't I? If I'm posting stuff about the Online Sales Academy, why wouldn't I post it to Training Managers Group? Of course I would, because they're the people who are signing off on people getting training, which is essentially what the Online Sales Academy is offering. And the same with Learning Education Training Professional Group, for example. So use your groups to expand your range and expand your reach, because it works exceptionally well. So if you're not in any, look for some. It'll find them. however bizarre, I've my training managers groups, manufacturing managers groups. You can put Yorkshire in there if you geographically just want to do that. You can filter it by location, just in UK, etc., etc. Okay. Um, the next thing, and probably the last thing to think about, is the data you already use and own, and that is your connections. Now, the problem with LinkedIn is you can't see your connections as a whole in any way, shape, or form within LinkedIn. So I've got, like I say, just over 10,000 connections. No idea who most of those are because I've connected, accepted, reached out, they've accepted, whatever. No idea why and who. So I'm going to export the connections and look at it. But most people have never exported their connections to find out who they're connected to. So I'm going to show you what to do with that. It's dead easy. There's 5 simple steps, and it shows you on there how to do that. And you request your connection archive. You'll still have to find emails because and you have to cross check that. But essentially, what I use LinkedIn for is I'll look at it and go, right, I'm going to do a campaign. I might cross check it against my CRM, and I'm going to do a campaign through my CRM. But actually, what I might just do is a LinkedIn campaign. So I'll give you an example. Well, I've already mentioned the Online Sales Academy, for example. If I export my connections, um, they'll come out as a CSV file. So the first thing I'd say to you all is, or save that straight away to an Excel spreadsheet. And the reason I say that is because a CSV file does not save your changes. I once saw a guy working for 2 hours on his data that come out of LinkedIn as a CSV file, and none of it saved. He wasted 2 hours. He was beyond frustrated. Save it as an Excel spreadsheet, and then you delete the first couple of top lines. So you've basically got the heading, it'll say name, job title, company, when you were connected, etc. Now, I'm interested in the job title, so I always sort the entire 10,000 by job role. And what I want to do is bracket all my sales directors together, MDs together, ops directors together, learning and development managers together, training managers together. And you get that in most cases. The problem is job titles they vary, don't they? So I'll give you an example. Sales director, I've got them all in there. Anyone called a sales director, I'll look at it and go, good God, I've got 200 sales directors connected to me. Brilliant. That's great. So I'm going to send them a link to a post about the Online Sales Academy. I'm going to do it manually through LinkedIn. I'm going to send them a message going, hi, John. Um, I've just posted about our Online Sales Academy that's coming up in August and September. I just wanted to make sure you'd seen the post. Put a link to the post in the message. Hope you find this of interest. Catch up soon, Nick. And then I just copy and paste, change the name, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. I can send that to 200 people, no problem at all. And those messages go out with a link to what I want them to see. Then you got people who are head of sales, which is not sales director, but it might be. So you don't get them all. You've got to go through them. But if you haven't got 10,000 connections, you're okay. If you've got, a few hundred or a couple of thousand, you bracket them together because I'm not going to send the same content as a sales director that I would do to a training manager or what I would do to an MD or whatever it might be. So I can create lots of mini sales campaigns using LinkedIn as the message of delivering my content to people I definitely want to see my content, but I can only do that if I've exported my connections. I actively encourage anyone watching or listening to this webinar, masterclass, whatever I've called it, to export your LinkedIn connections and just see who you're connected to, what job titles, and sort it by job title and save it. And do this on a regular basis. If you're actively increasing your LinkedIn numbers, then, and all you do, because it's got date connected, you've got a date of when you exported it last time, you're only looking at the new stuff, aren't you? So it's dead easy. So sales campaigns come from who do you want to inspire, okay? Who are you connected to? Exporting, first of all. Which groups are relevant to your campaign? Who do I want to guarantee will see this content? And you send them the personal message with a link back to the post. And all you do is go on the post and there's 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. Click on the 3 dots. It'll say copy. So you copy the link and then it'll say share. Or just copy and you put it into the type message. Post a link to the original post in the group, and it guarantees it'll be at least seen by the people that you want to see it. But don't ask all the time of people of the same thing. Don't say to people every week, the same people, I've just posted, I want you to see it. I've just posted, I want you to see it. Use it for special opportunities and special occasions, really. Okay. Um, but if you've got something important and you want it to reach an audience, that's the best way of doing it. Absolutely the best way of doing it. And then you think about follow up, okay? LinkedIn feels like sometimes no one's listening. Why am I bothering? I'm posting all this stuff, not getting much engagement. Seems like, I'm wasting my time. I've got better things to do, etc., etc. And I call it screaming into the void. But what I would say to you is this, okay? Don't sweat it. Keep creating the noise. Keep posting. Keep growing your network. Keep being proactive. Keep building your personal brand and stick with it because these people, I guarantee, are watching, they're watching, they're looking at your content. I have got over the years, probably 40, maybe even 50% of my business indirectly or directly attributed to LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is people say to me, "Oh, I saw you're the guy who does this," and I got a speaker gig the other day from someone who said, "Oh, I've seen that you do this. Would you be interested in speaking at our conference?" Or because they'd seen my content. I didn't know this person, but I knew when she said that she'd been looking at my content for that length of time. So why wouldn't she be interested? And that's them choosing to reach out to you when they're ready, but they're not ready if you stop. So keep doing what you're doing. You're not wasting your time, I promise you. Okay. Last thing I want to think about is this. How do you compare in your performance on LinkedIn to your peer group? So there's a thing called your social selling index. And on here, there's a link. It says click here for your score. So if you click on there for your score on the device that you're using to watch this webinar, usually your laptop or your desktop, then what it'll do is it will share with you your score. Now, this is my social selling score. It's 70 out of 100, 70%. And it scores in 4 key areas, okay? So it says, establish your professional brand. I've got 20, nearly 21 out of 25 from a professional brand. And the reason that isn't 25, because it used to be 25, is because recently I've confused LinkedIn by now talking about my football podcast as well as my business, etc., and my rants on a Friday. So it's dropped a little bit, and I'm okay with that. In terms of finding the right people, I'll never score highly for that because I don't have a type. I'll accept connections from like 99% of people. So LinkedIn goes, well, I can't work out who your target audience is because you're a bit all over the place. And I'm okay with that as well. Just short of 10 out of 25. Engaging with insights. Again, what that's saying is you're okay at that 15 out of 25. You could be, and I know over recent months, by the way, I haven't had time to share some of the sales insights I'd like to share and content and whatever, because I've been busy doing other things. And if I want to increase my score and I want to improve my performance on LinkedIn, that is where I would focus because I can improve that significantly with sharing content that's seen as insightful, valuable, sharing, etc., etc. But building relationships, numbers, 25 out of 25, etc. Now, all that means nothing except when you look at what that means in terms of 2 key indices. The first one is sales professionals in the business skills training industry. So it classes me as a business skills training professional. I've got an average score of 26. I've got a score of 70. What it's saying is I'm the top 2% of people on LinkedIn globally who work in the business skills training industry. I'll take that all day long. Top 2% globally. Then it says within my entire network of 10,000, just over 10,000 people, their average score is 46. So I'm in the top 5% of people I connect with on LinkedIn. I'll take that all day long. But if I want to improve my performance, I'm going to look at engage with insights. Have a look at yours. It might be that you're not building enough relationships. It might be that, if you have a connection strategy like mine, then accept that your score in the purple zone is going to be quite low because LinkedIn doesn't work out, what that is. I suspect Mark from Dynamic Business Services is higher because over the last few years, virtually all of his connections have got a type. So LinkedIn will probably give him a higher score for that. Establishing a professional brand, just making sure that everything you're doing is is built around, a consistency. Mine's a slightly inconsistent recently because of the football podcast. As a result of that, it's slightly confused. LinkedIn, I used to be on 25 for that. I'm not bothered. I'm okay with that. It's a deliberate choice on my part, but engaging with insights is the area I should be working on. But I'm still in the top 2% of people in my industry globally. I'm still in the top 5% of the 10,000 people I'm connected to. So it's not a bad place to be. Click on there for your score. I guarantee you'll be like, oh, wow, okay. And it doesn't matter what your starting point is. It literally doesn't matter. I had a client, we did a LinkedIn workshop in-house with their sales team, and they had a competition for 3 months to see who could increase their score by the highest level. So it didn't matter what their starting point was, it was the increase that they went for. Because some of the starting points were 20 odd, some of the starting points were 44. What was the level of increase over 3 months? And what it did, it allowed them to focus on things that were of value to LinkedIn. But funny enough, they're also of value to your audience. So it's a great indicator of what your starting point might be. I guarantee now you can't wait to click on that score, if indeed you haven't already clicked on that score. So ask for any questions in the webinar on a live kind of masterclass. If anyone's got any questions, having watched or seen this or played it back or whatever it might be, please ping them across to me in terms of email. I'll respond to them. I'd like you to take at least one thing away, if not more, from this particular webinar masterclass. So you're going to do something with it. That was kind of masterclass 10, webinar 10 in the Online Sales Academy. That is now complete for the year. All of the content is available. If you've missed any, you can request to purchase the ones you're missing or the full suite. So £35 each for an individual webinar, or you can have the whole package of 10 for £250. So they're available for you. They're all recorded like this without the audience. So they're all kind of what I would call clean, non-live content, but you get all that content at that price point if you want it. And finally, if you're not connected to me, why not connect with me? And there's my QR code. It'll take you straight to LinkedIn, straight to Nick Bramley. And if you feel like you want to do that, please feel free to recommend me. So thank you very much for watching the Online Sales Academy. Thank you for being part of the Online Sales Academy program for the August and September if you've been involved in other ones. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.